Thank you everyone who clicked on this video, you mean a lot to me. And before we get in, I would like to say that this is the second part of the first chapter of 4619, so if you missed the first one, please check it out. Joe was not born to live a worthless life. Joe was born to live. His father, Francis, was an influential businessman in realty sphere. Back in 2003, he was hitting the market of Lostport with his housing project able to suit anyone. In childhood, he lived in the great white north with his grandpa, who would beat him as if Francis was an animal he hunted for any minor disobedience. They had a house in a forest not so far from Leaf Rapids in Manitoba. When it was cold, cloudy and windy, and he was locked at home by his granddad, he would always look out of the window and realize, he is lonely here, in the middle of nature, but not in the nature. The house seemed a prison. He would always cry so much, because he knew what was happening in the outer world, away from this little forest. There were space exploration missions, scientific discoveries, rock bands were hitting the stage with their epic masterpieces filled with drive and spirit of freedom. The world around was evolving, and he could not help staying in the same place in all of its means. After crying, he always came to the conclusion that nobody was able to hear him, so he would better do something to get closer to his ideal life. He would go to the far corner of the house, open a chest where his grandpa kept all his belongings, just in case some burglar decides to go 10 miles from the nearest road to break into this house. Francis would open the chest and pull out his treasure, map of the world. There was something about it that gave Francis goosebumps every time he looked at it, the realization that the world is seemingly endless and offers seemingly endless opportunities. He would study it for hours and hours, traveling from Africa to Oceania and back again within a split second. However, one place attracted him the most, the little seaside city of Lostport. Something made Francis fall in love with this town on Goat Hope River. He did not dream of being in New York, or London, or Moscow, or any other metropolis that lives and evolves every single second. He just wanted to somehow find himself in Lostport, but he always knew that the city more than 1,000 miles away was something he could never reach. Now as you know how Francis Callahan used to live in his younger days, you will understand his excitement when the following miracle happened. The boy was only 7. He was sitting at home right next to his grandpa having supper. The room was poorly lit by candles. It was the end of November and the weather outside was something that you will not see on a normal northern night. The blizzard that hit the forest was strong, out of the ordinary. The night was dark and the snow made visibility go down to a few meters. Imagine the surprise Francis and his grandpa had when they heard someone walking in the snow towards their house. "I bet it's a werewolf coming after me," Grandpa exclaimed and took his hunting rifle off the wall. They went out, ready to let the guests in or shoot the enemy. Out in the distance they saw the silhouette of a woman. She was getting closer to the house. It was hard for her to move because of the wind. I will say more, it was hard to even stay in one place, but she continued walking to the shack. When she was a few meters away, Francis got the chance to look at her. She was in her 30s, looking tired but very beautiful. There was something about her that Francis seemed to recognize, but he could not figure out who she was until he gave a look at his grandpa. His eyes were full of tears. For a long time he stood speechless, and then he ran forward through the snow and hugged her. Tears were still on his eyes as he turned to Francis. "You see, my boy?" He smiled and addressed proudly to Francis. "You were a lost son. Now you are a found one. This is Mary, my lovely little daughter. Say hello to your mother, Fran." Francis burst into tears as soon as he heard this. He never remembered seeing his mother. His father dropped him at Leaf Rapids when he was only 3, and later they were news of him being shot in a gunfight close to the US border. Francis had some knowledge of his father, but his mother, she was never mentioned. She came into the house and agreed to stay there overnight. The old and cruel hunter changed a lot when he saw his daughter. He tried to be welcoming and polite. The problem with that was the fact that he never knew how to be polite. With no people around, there was no such need. All 3 sat down and got on with the supper. Francis's mother seemed uncomfortable and even frightened in this forest house, and therefore got called out by the grandpa. "You were born here, you know, Mary." said he after drinking a glass of some home brew. "You lived here for such a long time. I thought when you grow older we will meet each other often. But your mother, the old hag, would never even let me see you. What does she think? The way I live is worse than hers, well, most likely. But that was my choice to live here. Mary, you're such a cruel daughter. You left your loving father for years. Look how low I got. And you left your only son just to run away to that filthy town. You, moreover, are a terrible mother." After saying this, he drank another glass and fell asleep, and his snores could be heard a mile away. Francis and Mary dragged the drunk old man through the room and put him into bed. His face now expressed a calm and delicate state of mind. Francis and Mary got back to the table. Mary addressed to her son, whispering this time. "Hey, Frankie, we will run away tomorrow. I will stop your miserable life here. You think I was hiding from you all this time. You think I was the one who just left you here for good. But this is not real me. I wanted to save you from these lonely woodlands and give you a good life. All this time I worked at a sewing factory on the edge of... well, it's a small town, you don't know it. And now we can finally offer ourselves a little flatlet there. I always wanted to take you with me. I got here by train, the one of the GWN rail company. And then a 4-hour walk to your place waited for me. At first a local man went with me, but a mile or so into our journey he found his body on the sidelines, and he left there by the road, to drink till devil gets him. The worst part on the way was left. Going through the forest, then the blizzard started. The guy who got there was probably unconscious and drunk somewhere by the road with no need to escape, and I was struggling to get here. But tomorrow, together, we will go away. But do not let your expectations rise up to the moon. It is just a small town after all." The words "small town" immediately reminded Francis of that little city he dreamed about, Lostport, and he even started trembling of excitement. "Which small town? Mama, please tell me it's Lostport." Mary's expression changed as she heard Francis say this. This is not the whole chapter 1. There are more parts coming up in the future. Thank you everyone who clicked, and feel free to express your opinion in the comments.